Today is Monday, May 20th. We'll tell you about a helicopter crash that might mean a major power shift in the Middle East, what's being called a new low for lawmakers in the U.S. Congress, and where severe storms are in the forecast today. Plus, what Diddy Combs had to say about shocking surveillance video of him, a big milestone for America's first black astronaut candidate, and who came out on top in 3 big sporting events over the weekend. Those stories and more news to know next. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. The second most powerful person in Iran has died. A helicopter carrying Iran's president, Ibrahim Raisi, along with other key members of Iran's cabinet, crashed as it was flying through heavy fog. Rescuers rushed to the site, but no survivors were found. As you know, the crash comes at an especially sensitive moment for the Middle East. It's only been about a month since Iran launched an attack on Israel in response to a deadly strike on its diplomatic compound in Syria. Iran has also faced years of mass protests over the economy and women's rights. And there's the war on Gaza that's put the entire Middle East on edge. The only person more powerful than President Raisi is the supreme leader Ayatollah, and he says the business of Iran's government would continue no matter what. The next in line for succession is Iran's first vice president, if the Ayatollah approves. Israel's war cabinet is now openly in turmoil. The war cabinet minister, Benny Gantz, threatened to resign unless Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu sets out a post-war plan for Gaza within the next couple of weeks. And just a few days ago, another war cabinet member called on Netanyahu to publicly state that Israel was not planning to take over Gaza rule. They both say maintaining military control in Gaza would put Israel at risk. But Netanyahu and other far-right members of his government believe continued control is necessary to defeat Hamas. As the rift grows, fighting is still raging all across the Gaza Strip. The U.S. sent another envoy to Israel over the weekend who urged the Israeli government to go after Hamas militants in a more targeted way. Though Israel says aides were working to convince the American envoy that a full-scale invasion is needed to claim victory, keep Israel safe, and get all the Israeli hostages back. Speaking of which, it's not clear how many of those hostages taken on October 7th are still alive. Over the weekend, 4 of their bodies were recovered. Negotiations over a possible hostage deal that could lead to a temporary ceasefire in Gaza had been going on for several days, but they reached a deadlock last week. Here in the U.S., the top presidential candidates were busy on the campaign trail this weekend. Former President Trump spoke at the National Rifle Association's annual meeting. There, he called himself the best friend gun owners have ever had in the White House. And he promised to keep defending the Second Amendment, which he says is under siege. Meanwhile, President Biden spent much of the weekend reaching out to black voters. He spoke at a graduation ceremony at a historically black college where he said he wanted to make his administration as diverse as America. Then, at an NAACP dinner last night, Biden spoke about how Trump wants to pardon those convicted of crimes for the Capitol riot and said Trump would not be so sympathetic if the people storming the Capitol had been people of color. In response, the Trump campaign called Biden's comments preposterous, saying he was only trying to divert attention from his weak poll numbers. The general election is now just 168 days away. Fallout just keeps growing in response to a chaotic hearing in the U.S. House last week. It was full of members shouting, insulting each other's appearances, and constant heckling. There were even allegations of some lawmakers drinking on the job. In response, many Democrats and Republicans called it a new low in the disorder and lack of productivity that's defined the 118th Congress. Now, House Speaker Mike Johnson says, quote, "We have to take the emotion out of these things." He says he'll be meeting with fellow Republicans about decorum, and he suggests Democratic leaders do the same. Hundreds of thousands of people in the Houston area are still without power 4 days after devastating severe weather. We told you about the storms last week that caused flooding, hurricane-force winds, tornadoes, and left 7 people dead. Well, ever since, much of the Houston area has been without air conditioning in the unrelenting heat and humidity. In fact, the heat index is expected to reach the triple digits this week. Most people who lost power in the storms last week do have their power back, but more than 200,000 homes and businesses are still in the dark and the heat and could stay that way for the next couple of days. Meanwhile, millions of Americans are bracing for more severe weather that could hit the middle of the country today. Storms started yesterday with at least 10 tornado reports across Kansas, Colorado, and Oklahoma. Today, the biggest threats are in parts of Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, and Missouri. Strong winds, hail, and a few tornadoes could come with the storms starting this evening. Then the chance for severe weather could become even more widespread tomorrow. Stay tuned. All right, we have much more news for you still ahead. But first, thanks to our sponsor, Trade Coffee. Trade Coffee is changing the way you experience coffee at home. They continuously curate a wide variety of coffees from the best small batch specialty roasters in the U.S., then make personalized recommendations based on what you like or may like to try. And every bag is roasted to order and shipped fresh to you by one of their 50-plus partners. From dark roasts to decafs, espressos to cold brew and iced coffee, you can discover the best coffee suited to your taste. And with graduations, Father's Day, and summer birthdays coming up, it's not too early to begin thinking of the perfect gift, and you can't go wrong with better coffee. I personally love that I get to try some different types of coffee and feel confident that they're all so high quality, and they really do taste so great. I look forward to my morning pick-me-up more than ever before. So give Trade a try for a month and see how you can make better coffee at home. Right now, they're offering 30% off your first month of coffee when you visit drinktrade.com/newsworthy. That's drinktrade.com/newsworthy for 30% off a month of coffee. drinktrade.com/newsworthy. Okay, now back to the news. The first Black man to be trained as an astronaut has finally made it to space 63 years later. Ed Dwight was chosen to be among the first pilots the U.S. was going to send to space in 1961. But even though he completed his training and received an Air Force recommendation, Dwight ended up being passed over. Well, flash forward more than 6 decades, and Dwight boarded Blue Origin's New Shepard rocket over the weekend. He and 5 other crewmates went on a flight at more than 2,000 miles an hour. At the peak, they experienced a few minutes of weightlessness and striking views of Earth through the cabin windows. With this flight, Dwight also became the oldest person to ever reach space at 90 years old. He called it a life-changing experience and said he's ready to go again. Some disturbing video surfaced over the weekend showing hip-hop mogul Diddy Combs assaulting his ex-girlfriend. It was security footage from a hotel hallway in 2016. It shows Combs punching, kicking, and dragging singer Cassie, who at the time was his longtime girlfriend and protege. She sued Combs last year over what she said was years of sexual, physical, and emotional abuse. The suit was settled the next day, but several more lawsuits ended up being filed, and a criminal sex trafficking investigation was opened up. Up until now, Combs has denied all the allegations and said the accusers were looking for a quick payday. But then this video came out. Combs responded on Instagram yesterday saying, quote, "I take full responsibility for my actions in that video. I'm disgusted." But Cassie's lawyer called the response disingenuous. Either way, the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office says it won't be able to file charges since that attack happened so long ago. The sex trafficking investigation is still underway. The world's top golfer was arrested in Louisville, Kentucky over the weekend, where he was competing in the PGA Championship. Scottie Scheffler was trying to drive to the Valhalla Golf Club at about 6 a.m. on Friday when he came to the scene of a deadly crash that had the road shut down. At that point, police say Scheffler refused to stop when he was told to, and when an officer tried to stop Scheffler himself, the officer got dragged by the vehicle. With that, Scheffler was arrested and charged with assaulting a police officer, reckless driving, and more. Still, he ended up getting released from jail and returned to the golf course for his tee time. For now, his first court date is set for tomorrow, though Scheffler says he just misunderstood what he was being asked to do. And some reports say the charges against him may be dropped. So stay tuned. Well, now on to the actual competition at the PGA Championship. Xander Schauffele ended up winning it all by just one shot with a birdie on the final hole. It was his first major championship victory, and this was the 9th straight PGA Championship won by an American. As for Scheffler, he tied for 8th place. But that wasn't the only big sporting event over the weekend. There was also another big day in horse racing, the Preakness Stakes. Seize the Gray won it this year, closing at 9-1 odds, one of the longest shots on the board. The Kentucky Derby winner, Mystic Dan, ended up finishing second, meaning no one will win the Triple Crown this year. Still, the final leg, the Belmont Stakes, is set for next month. And finally, let's talk soccer. Since history was made this weekend, Manchester City became the first team to win 4 straight Premier League titles. That gives Manchester City 8 championships, which is the second most in history behind Manchester United's 13. Mickey, Minnie, and the rest of the Disney crew have decided to unionize. Disneyland performers in Anaheim, California overwhelmingly voted over the weekend to join the Actors Equity Association. The same association already represents workers at the Walt Disney World Resort in Orlando, Florida. Now the Disneyland employees in the character and parade departments will start talking about improvements to health and safety, pay, benefits, working conditions, and job security. And eventually, the association will meet with Walt Disney Company reps to negotiate a new contract. Disneyland has just said it supports its cast members' right to unionize, but also points out that non-union employees were already getting yearly raises and paid sick leave. So far, the National Labor Relations Board hasn't commented, but it's expected to certify the election results within the week. Well, that's it for the main news, so now it's time for Money Monday, when we talk about one interesting money-related news story. But first, I'm excited to talk about our sponsor, Boll & Branch. If you're looking to refresh your home for spring and summer, the best way may not actually be just new decor. That stuff does not compare to the difference soft, breathable, all-new bedding can make. Because loving the place you sleep and actually getting good sleep are some of the best things you can do for yourself. My husband and I have tried our fair share of sheets, and when we moved homes, we both agreed Boll & Branch's signature sheets are our favorite. So much so that we decided to buy a second set in a different color. We also chose to get our new duvet set from Boll & Branch because we know how high quality and comfortable their bedding is. And sure enough, it's cloud-like. Plus, Boll & Branch's signature sheets are made with the finest 100% organic cotton and are completely free from toxins. Sleep better with the softest, most breathable bedding from Boll & Branch. Get 15% off your order when you use the promo code NEWSWORTHY at bollandbranch.com. That's Boll and Branch, BOLLAND, branch.com with the promo code NEWSWORTHY. Exclusions apply, so see site for details. Now, back to Money Monday. Paying for college is getting more costly once again. The Education Department says interest rates on federal student loans are rising. So instead of 5.5% like they were the past school year, they'll be 6.5% for undergraduates. That's the highest they've been in 16 years. And the rates will be even higher for graduate students, professional students, and parents of college students. All federal education loans issued after next month will be subject to the new rates. Though note, you don't have to worry about loans you've already taken out for previous years since those rates won't change. This also won't impact private loans, though they often come with higher interest rates anyway. Of course, this is expected to put an extra burden on students who are already paying more for tuition. The average tuition for a 4-year in-state public college now stands at more than $11,000 a year. For a private 4-year college, the average tuition is almost $42,000. Well, thank you so much for listening and starting your week with us. We'll be back to keep you up to date on the news you need to know tomorrow. For now, have a great day.